What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of Caffeinate. Today for May the 21st of 2019. My name is Samuel Adams, and welcome to today's show. Of course, as always, I do hope this one finds you well, and if you happen to be brand new to the show, this is a daily gaming news podcast where I bring you the hottest gaming news from around the industry, and today we have yet another look at the next generation of PlayStation, thanks to a reporter from the Wall Street Journal on Twitter. It looks pretty good, I must admit. We're going to be talking more about loading times than anything, and I will say, if you come here expecting some kind of tech demo, if you come here expecting some kind of actual representation of the kind of gameplay you are going to be getting, number one, you're very naive, but hold on to that, because that's a fantastic memorandum of childhood. But on top of that, we also don't have that, I'm sorry. But stick around, because we have more news coming down the pipe, on top of a brand new studio from Sony turning PlayStation games into movies and shows. George R.R. Martin, you might be familiar with him, stokes the flames of a FromSoftware collaboration via a new rumor. Tfue has sued FaZe Clan, we'll talk more about that. Xbox head Phil Spencer addresses toxicity in gaming, and a terminal cancer patient is getting to play a pretty big game for 2019 just a bit early. But that is our lineup for today's show. Of course, if you do happen to be new here, the show is hosted 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. If you did want to dive in and give it a look, it's always a phenomenal time, and I always keep you guys informed. But then, of course, the show is taken down from Twitch and put up on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia, as well as podcast services around the world if you did want to give it a look. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top stories, starting off with the big investor relations video showing off the difference between PS4 and the next generation of loading and content streaming. While Sony has already confirmed the existence of their next generation console through a Wired interview with Mark Cerny, but the article was obviously quite reliant on Sony explaining features for the system rather than a formal presentation of what Sony wants their PS4 successor, presumably called the PlayStation 5, to do. However, seemingly, we have gotten the first look at what Sony expects from it, at least in terms of power compared to this generation, through a video to a presentation to investors. The video was posted by Takashi Mochizuki of the Wall Street Journal, who has a long history of insider information. And of course, the video is as follows, and it looks to be a pretty good time. So, of course, to break it down, what we pretty much have here is the next generation, which is currently under development, being shown off, and the loading times are being compared. So on the right, you have the PlayStation 4 Pro, and on the left, you have the next generation of consoles playing Spider-Man PS4. And so whenever you are looking at this, obviously load times are blown away with the newest generation of consoles, but on top of that, the rendering times, because of the new loading times, are really the game changer here. As you can see, as you swing through the city, as this tech demo brings you through New York, videos pop in and out, or excuse me, buildings pop in and out of the video because of the fact that rendering takes a while. Now, with the next generation and the loading times and just better speeds overall, you get pretty much a flawless, seamless experience whenever you are swinging through New York, riding through New York, or being tech demoed through New York, as you might have to be via, of course, an investor relations video. Now, of course, as the video shows, Mochizuki tweets compares the performance of Spider-Man on PS4 versus what it would be on PlayStation 5. This is only for performance, mind you, not a hypothetical if that game were made for the PlayStation 5, including texture work. The PS4 version takes quite a while to load, and when streaming through the city, occasionally does hitch up. I, for one, will say, as a bit of a break, have never had any kind of issue with it whatsoever. But the PlayStation 5 version loads much quicker and does not seem to have any problems going through the city at a high speed. It isn't exactly a big flashing sign that says this is a PlayStation 5 game, but it is interesting to see where Sony is hanging their hat within the company and to investors. And of course, in further tweets, there is more translation of what's being said, etc. I would encourage you to check it out. But so, at the very least, it does look like Sony is taking the idea of quick data loading and keeping performance up through seamless streaming to be paramount within their new consoles. Mark Cerny talked the talk in his interview with The Wired, but it is nice to know they are planning to walk the walk. And I will say, as Decky says in the chat, cannot wait for the PlayStation 5. But of course, everybody's saying, what are the graphics going to look like? What are we talking about when it comes to how my gameplay experience is going to be changed? And I think that what we are seeing here is the industry beginning to shift and evolve in such a way that it requires a new version of next generation, so to speak. Because whenever you are thinking about the graphic fidelity of a PlayStation 4 Pro, or even more so an Xbox One X, it's hard to get better than that. Of course, you do have, 4K 60 coming down the pipe. That's going to be pretty much the new industry standard when it comes to entertainment streaming. But at the same time, once you hit that, how can you go past that? Do we just keep increasing resolutions and frame rates? Because at some point, we get to the point where we're pretty much satisfied, and that's where I'm at right now, even with many games on my PlayStation 4 Pro and on my, of course, gaming PC. So where do we go from here? We increase the loading speed. We make the experience better in ways that the standard average gamer might not necessarily consider. And that's where we're getting this new PlayStation 5, if you want to call it that, tech demo, where you do see better loading times, better rendering speeds. The overall quality of the game is improved because of the better PC performance. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I call it PC performance because that's effectively what it is. But of course, we saw a huge interview via Wired, which of course they talk about here in this article, that goes very in depth as to what you can expect from the next generation of consoles in terms of tech. Now, that's all up in the air. Of course, tech is something that evolves on a week-to-week basis. The chip that is going to be used in the PlayStation 5 now is likely, of course, pretty much solidified, but small changes, slight tweaks may be made here and there. Optimization, of course, still has to come down the pipe on the developer end of things. So, at the end of the day, it is very, very exciting to see where the next generation of consoles is going. And I will say, as somebody who has had everything in the past, from PS3s to Xbox 360s to PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, multiple Xbox Ones, as we all know, and then I built gaming PCs, the power of the next generation of consoles is something that is very intriguing to me, because gaming on a PC is great until you realize just how much goes into that. And I will say that although I do love my gaming PC, I still tend to gravitate back towards that classic gaming experience that I get from a PlayStation or an Xbox. I just like that. It connects with me. And so if the next generation of consoles was to be equal to a PC in terms of power and performance, that is very intriguing to me. Now, how will it continue to grow and evolve? That's kind of up in the air. But we will see what happens as the next generation does continue to roll down the pipe. But very exciting nonetheless, especially for fans of these big, of course, AAA games like Spider-Man, which very well could see a port. I doubt it, but hey, it's a good game to show off a tech demo with. I will say that. And of course, to those hanging out live in the chat on Twitch, welcome on in. I am glad to see you, and indeed, the Nintendo Switch will of course outsell the PlayStation 5, without a doubt, without a doubt. But let's move on to the next big topic of the day, which is a Sony studio will turn PlayStation games into movies and shows. This is a big deal because of PlayStation productions coming into development. Sony is no longer content to wait for media giants to produce shows based on its games. The company has formed a PlayStation production studio that will produce movies and TV shows based on games. Sony Studios will help distribute the material, but it's otherwise in-house. It won't license brands like other gaming giants have in the past. The company's Sean Layden told Hollywood Reporter that this wasn't just an opportunity to extend the experience of a game and thus make more money, but also a chance to address Hollywood's notorious inability to translate games, to the big screen. Now, I want to focus on that small little sentence there for just a moment. The inability to translate games to the big screen is essentially saying most of the video game movies that come out tend to not be great. I mean, we have Tomb Raider, which it was Tomb Raider. It wasn't good, but it was Tomb Raider. You have the Doom movie with The Rock. That's the one that comes to mind for me. You have tons of Mortal Kombat movies, one of which is coming out in 2021, but the other can be found at the dollar store from time to time. And that's pretty much the gist of what we have here. Many directors and screenwriters didn't understand that game world or gaming thing, Layden said, arguing that they frequently do little more than retell a game's plot. Instead, PlayStation Productions was eyeing Marvel's wildly successful approach and even talked to key industry figures like Kevin Feige to get an understanding of the industry. Sony is more familiar with the franchises and knows what its fans like, so why shouldn't it produce its own movies and shows? Layden also stressed that the Sony Studios team-up would allow for a more relaxed schedule. There wouldn't be yearly quotas or other efforts to rush releases. Production is already underway, although there aren't any named titles so far. The larger question is whether or not the studio really can overcome the hurdles that have stymied game adaptations so far. The Uncharted movie has been in production limbo for years, for instance. Can PlayStation Productions move faster while still obtaining top talent and creating something that would make fans happy? Still, this hasn't really been done before. Activision and Ubisoft may have media divisions, but they still farm out adaptations to conventional studios. If it works as promised, you might actually look forward to video game movies instead of wondering how they will butcher your favorite franchise. And I think the chat has the biggest point that I want to make, and it's something that I think a lot of people can identify with, but when it comes to PlayStation games, most of them feel more like movies and TV shows to begin with anyways, and I'm talking about those big AAA experiences. Think about The Last of Us, and of course the upcoming The Last of Us Part 2. That entire franchise is more of a movie than anything. I mean, truly, it's something that you find edits of on YouTube that have spliced all of the cutscenes together, and boom, it's just a simple cinematic masterpiece in and of itself. God of War, phenomenal game, one that would make a phenomenal movie. I would love to see that. I would love to pour 2 to 3 hours of my life into that. That sounds absolutely fantastic. Another one in the chat, Metal Gear Solid. That would be a great franchise to add to any kind of movie collection. These PlayStation, identified games, the ones that are commonly associated with the PlayStation name, they have so much power in the movie industry that is completely and totally untapped. And so if you have these giant games waiting to be made into a different style of content, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? I mean, truly, this is something that I never thought of. I didn't think that Sony would go all in and do a Sony Studios / PlayStation Productions team up, but it's something that I am very excited about because of the potential of course, PlayStation brands. But we will see where this does end up going. Of course, I'm all for collaborations. The Ratchet & Clank situation was very interesting in and of itself because a lot of people around my age, I'm 22, tended to grow up with stuff like Ratchet & Clank, and even I would say Jak and Daxter. But whenever they went to go reboot Ratchet & Clank and remake the original game, they went ahead and went all in on a movie and a game, and of course, a couple of other merchandising deals here and there. So the movie didn't do so well. It wasn't bad, but it didn't do so well. But you took those cutscenes and a couple of those movie moments and you made it into a remake of the game, which did incredibly well. And so in that kind of respect, you can kind of approach movies and games together in a way while also maintaining a separation. It's a complex way to release a piece of media and to revive an IP, but an interesting one nonetheless. So if you did want to dive in and read more about this, of course, we will see what PlayStation Productions comes up with, but a lot of people are talking about this right now, including myself, because I am very excited to see where the future of this little production studio does end up going. But we won't see what happens. Hopefully the movie video game curse is broken at some point in the future. And of course, as media begin to merge together, you begin to have names from other parts of the entertainment industry come into gaming, such as George R.R. Martin stoking the flames of a FromSoftware collaboration rumor. Not a movie, mind you, but instead a game. Ooh. If you were wondering why those final 2 Game of Thrones books are taking so long, we now partially know the answer. George R.R. Martin has revealed he has been working on a video game, one that is rumored to be a FromSoftware title. If the last bit is true, I can totally forgive him for the wait. A few weeks ago, the initial rumor was unleashed by video games industry veteran Varys Liam Robertson and YouTube channel Spawnwave, claiming Martin is working on some sort of Souls-like game by FromSoftware with an open-world style, different kingdoms, and abilities that can be collected from each area, with Martin working on and realizing the world. That was the last we had heard of the project until yesterday, when Martin himself provoked further speculation. In a blog post released to celebrate the final episode of HBO's Game of Thrones, Martin briefly mentioned he has consulted on a video game out of Japan. Martin didn't elaborate further on the title, but a source familiar with FromSoftware's ongoing projects gave Gameatsu further information. Excuse me. Apparently, the game is internally being called GR and has been in development for the past 3 years. Again, it's supposed to be an open-world title with horse riding, published by Bandai Namco, and the brainchild of a collaboration between Hidetaka Miyazaki, creator of the Soul series, and George R.R. Martin. If you are intrigued by all of that, you may not have to wait much longer to see the title announced, as the source also claims the game will be unveiled at Microsoft's E3 2019 press conference on the 9th of June. We do know FromSoftware has 2 games games planned via Gematsu as well, and this collaboration, if true, would certainly make sense. The question is, what exactly would it be? Dark Souls 4, a Game of Thrones themed title, or an entirely new IP? Martin has been very unclear on this, saying some of his projects are based upon my own stories and books, some on material created by others. Hopefully we will find out in a few weeks, or perhaps sooner, if this leaks as fast as a Game of Thrones episode. And indeed, it could be Game of Souls. I would love to see a Game of Thrones themed game, I suppose, because that would just be something that I think a lot of fans would like. I think it makes sense as well, considering the action nature of Game of Thrones. And of course, much storytelling can be done within that realm. But to get, to take a step back from Game of Thrones, to get George R.R. Martin disassociated in a way with the franchise that has made him notable around the world, the mind of this man, the imagination of this man, the creativity of this man is something that has to be tapped. I mean, truly, he is a genius, and you might not be happy with the final couple of episodes of Game of Thrones, but at the same time, this man created this world and is continuing to create this world and build it out in a way that I haven't seen anything built out since something like Harry Potter. I mean, truly, Game of Thrones is massive, and for him to be able to come up with this shows off the power of his mind. And I mean, to be able to tap into that for a brand new world, to be able to create entirely new lore that has never been seen before, that is where the value of Martin comes in my book. And so I would love to see FromSoftware do something completely and totally new with this individual and take that creativity and just tap into it and see what comes out. I mean, truly, that's what I would love to see. If FromSoftware came and said, hey, these are the kind of games we make, and they show him like Dark Souls or whatever, I want you to take this concept and just make something. Here's a blank canvas, and I want you to throw out whatever comes to mind. That would be absolutely phenomenal. So we will see what happens, but indeed there will be some steamy action too. Of course, we all know Game of Thrones, and if George is involved in that steamy action, that could be a game changer nonetheless. Maybe sales would go down, for some may go up. But I digress. We will see what happens as this project begins to grow and evolve. And of course, E3 2019 coming right around the corner. Now, my coverage, as it tends to be from year to year, will still be on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia for E3 of 2019. But I will say, starting a new job, my schedule going to be a little bit whack. But we will see what happens, because I am still going to be covering as much of the conference as I possibly can. Very exciting stuff. And indeed, I think that Vadaz, something like that in the chat. I apologize. Caroline, we'll go with that. But Caroline says in the chat, it could be something like a Fable type game. It may not necessarily be a Souls style game. That's another thing to bring to the table. But we don't have too long to wait. Less than a month away. Very exciting stuff. However, we have talked about tons of gaming-related news today. Let's go ahead and move on to some internet drama. Now, I thought about covering this. I thought about leaving it out. It depends on how you want to approach the topic of gaming news. But nonetheless, the repercussions of this story, they leave it as something that cannot be ignored. Turner Tenney, a 21-year-old professional gamer known as Tfue, says that FaZe Clan is violating a California law and the Talent Agency Act. One of the world's top professional esports players is suing his gaming organization for allegedly restraining his business opportunities and taking up to 80% of his earnings in a complaint that argues esports players' representatives should be regulated like agents of film and TV stars. Turner Tenney, a 21-year-old professional gamer known as Tfue, on Monday sued FaZe Clan for allegedly limiting his ability to pursue his profession in violation of California law, passing on a lucrative brand deal because of a conflict of interest, and failing to pay him his share of sponsored earnings. In no uncertain terms, these gamers are artists, entertainers, and content creators. They perform, they act, they direct, they edit, and they stream, writes attorney Brian Friedman of Friedman and Tatelman in the complaint. Unlike traditional entertainment, esports is a new industry, and Friedman argues there is little to no regulation or oversight, and no unions or guilds to protect the players who are often young and trusting. There is a lot of money up for grabs. Top esports player Tyler Blevins, known as Ninja, in December told CNN he brought in $10 million last year playing Fortnite. He boasts more than 20 million subscribers on YouTube and has racked up more than 450 million views on Twitch. His sponsors include Samsung, Uber Eats, and, of course, Red Bull. Tenney says he is missing out on those opportunities opportunities because of FaZe Clan's unlawful activity in connection with a deal he signed in April of 2018, and he only gets to keep 20% of the revenue from any branded videos that are published on Twitch, YouTube, or social media, and half of his revenue from touring and appearances. His Twitch streams have been viewed more than 120 million times, and he has more than 10 million YouTube subscribers, as well as 5.5 million Instagram followers. That gamer agreement is grossly oppressive, onerous, and one-sided, writes Friedman. FaZe Clan uses its legal gamer contracts to limit Tenny to deals sourced exclusively by FaZe Clan and to prevent Tenny from exploring deals presented by others. Deals that are potentially superior to deals procured by FaZe Clan and deals that are not saddled with an 80% finder's fee. Tenny attempted to terminate that agreement in September, claiming FaZe Clan breached their deal. According to the complaint, the group rejected Tenny's termination and contends he is still bound by their contract. Tenny is asking the court for a declaration that the gamer agreement is terminated and is seeking fair payment for his services and disgorgement of FaZe Clan's profits as well as punitive damages. FaZe Clan on Monday afternoon sent THR a statement, of course that being the Hollywood Reporter, in response to the complaint. "We are shocked and disappointed to see the news of Tfue's press article and lawsuit." It reads in part, "We have only collected a total of $60,000 from our partnership while Tfue has earned millions as a member of FaZe Clan." And of course, this does continue to go on and on and on and on, but I will say this is an incredibly interesting story that shows the inside portion of an industry that is often assumed to be something that is a little bit shady from time to time, but on top of that, very lucrative for younger people. And I will say, as somebody who is 22 years old, this is very relatable because you get thrown into a lot of opportunities as a content creator. Now, of course, if you look at the channel and you look at my statistics and you look at the kind of content that I make, I'm not making millions of dollars. I know, shocking, isn't it? It's crazy. It's almost like I do this because I like it. But I digress. I have been offered deals, I have been reached out to, and companies know that as people that are in their late teens, early 20s, we are very excited about the fact that we even have these opportunities to begin with, and that young, that young, I guess, ability to be abused or something like that, whatever you want to call it, this naivety, if that's a word, can be completely and totally taken advantage of, and I think that does go on a good bit in the industry. However, I will say, with this story with Tfue, it's a little bit different than I believe he portrays, because he then goes on in Twitch clips to say that he has pretty much kept all of his tournament earnings, although some of them have been given to charity, and of course this can all be found online. But I think that a lot of his accusations may not necessarily be on the up and up, but on top of that, I think there is a bigger value to this entire situation, and of course I would encourage you to go and read all the responses from FaZe Banks, the leader of FaZe Clan. Of course, 100 Thieves Nate Shot got involved in that. Don't know how that happened, but I digress. The value in this entire discussion comes from the fact that this is a topic that needs to be addressed. The way this side of the industry is currently should definitely change. Things should be more open, and things should be more clear, and people should not be taken advantage of. And of course, that is partially the nature of the entertainment industry, of which esports is a part, but still, it would be nice to see this young fledgling industry begin to really own itself and to really become something that is more professional than it is a group of gamers that have found a way to monetize their hobby. And of course, still, growing pains are a big part of the gaming industry as a whole, but on top of that, specifically the content creation portion of this is still very, very young in the grand scheme of things. It is truly something that should be considered, but to see all these accusations from somebody this big on Twitch is the big story here as well, because again, Tfue, one of the biggest Fortnite streamers out there, pretty much right behind Ninja in my mind. Very interesting to say the least. But we will see how this story does end up. Of course, the lawsuit is currently in court and being deliberated about, so a lot more to come on this specific story. Now, of course, Gaster in the chat says, "I don't just drink coffee. I also inject pure adrenaline when I wake up." You know what that's called? That's called Caffeinate. Welcome to the show, friend. Welcome to the show. But let's move on and talk about Xbox head Phil Spencer's addressing of toxicity in gaming and his plan to combat it. In a newly published op-ed by Phil Spencer, the Xbox executive outlines the Xbox team's plans to fight toxicity in gaming. Leading with a short anecdote about how gaming has served as a portal for him and his father to begin programming, Spencer then transitions into the two fundamental truths he told about gaming. Gaming is for everyone, and it should protect everyone who partakes in it. If you imagine gamers as predominantly men, and specifically teen boys, think again, Spencer says. We are a 2.6 billion person strong community of parents playing with our kids, adventurers exploring worlds together, teachers making math wondrous, grandmothers learning about their grandchildren through play, and soldiers connecting with their folks back home. Most gamers today are adults, nearly half are women. Spencer continues to overview the ways gamers and games have been dismissed or maligned, offering counters to this viewpoint with multiple studies showing the mental, social, and academic benefits gaming both offers to children and adults. Gaming is uniquely designed for equality, Spencer says. We don't just walk in someone's shoes, we stand on equal footing, regardless of age, education, socioeconomics, race, religion, politics, gender, orientation, ethnicity, nationality, or ability. Spencer then outlines his and Xbox's plan to combat toxicity. The first step, says Spencer, is to expand the reach and scope of the Xbox safety team, nicknamed the Defenders of Joy. Pause. Really should reconsider that name, because that sounds like some kind of knockoff brand, like Avengers. What? Come on now. A welcoming community is the key to a safe community, Spencer says. Our 150,000 Xbox ambassadors, community leaders, stewards, and allies will be engaged to embark on a new community mission to help create an inviting and safe environment for all gamers. Additionally, Spencer delves into content moderation for children and teens, citing workshops and online resources Microsoft has offered to parents looking to protect their children from adult content or online harassment. Spencer also mentions the upcoming gaming summer camps, where children can be offered new ways to explore life skills and practice healthy habits that can be used in gaming and in everyday life. We are innovating now in these and other concrete ways to reduce, filter, and develop a shared understanding of toxic experiences, and to ultimately put our community of gamers and their parents or guardians in control of their own experiences, Spencer says. Now, according to Spencer, Microsoft intends to share this technology and knowledge with police and other technology companies to create a safer, universal gaming space. Closing his statement, Spencer cites the approaching launch of streaming services such as Microsoft's Project X Cloud, as well as the Apple Arcade and Google Stadia, to stress the importance of immediate improvements to player safety from abuse and harassment. Our industry must now answer the fierce urgency to play with our fierce urgency for safety, Spencer says. We invite everyone who plays games and industry partners to join us in following these principles to help unify the world and do our part, make gaming accessible for everyone, and protect gamers one and all. And so, we have a big statement from Phil Spencer, of course, one that is not controversial or anything. I think we are all for a more open, accepting gaming industry. And of course, some people would say that this is getting to be a narrative that we see on a weekly basis, but it's a narrative that we need to have right now. And I want to focus primarily on Xbox for a moment, because they have been making some really big strides ensuring that this concept of gaming being for everyone is something that is genuine, and it's something that is possible because of stuff like the Xbox Adaptive Controller. And for those that don't know, this is a controller that was built by engineers from the ground up to pretty much give everyone a way to play regardless of what physical limitations you might be dealing with in your day-to-day life. And it has been phenomenal to see the stories that have come out about the Xbox Adaptive Controller and how it's allowing everybody to play games that are sometimes inaccessible because of their physical limitations. That's amazing to me. But on top of that, to combat toxicity, I think, is a big goal. It is definitely something that is borderline impossible, I would say. And of course, Gaster in the chat says, when you try to control toxicity, it builds up. Imagine a bubble full of a liquid, let's say acid. Exactly, I get where you're going with that. It's a very difficult topic to touch because toxicity is something that is going to be in the gaming industry, and I hate to say it because it's part of the gaming industry, and it's something that goes back as far as the first time that a voice chat was put into a game and somebody said, "Yes, suck a dick," like that. That is where it all begins, and then it just amplifies from there, and it just changes and grows and evolves, and now it has become part of the modern gaming industry. You see it on Twitch every single day. I mean, and I hate to call anybody out right now, but Dr. Disrespect, okay? We all know, or at least most people know, of Dr. Disrespect, a famous Twitch streamer primarily known for streaming BR games and first-person shooters, but the character that he puts on a day-to-day basis is the most toxic character that I could ever imagine, that is still somewhat friendly to people because he brings in thousands of viewers. But you understand what I'm saying. The way that he presents himself is pretty much the way that I imagine the gaming industry to be. He is competitive, he is bloodthirsty, and he is toxic. That's pretty much what it comes down to. You see this throughout the entire industry, and it's something that I would love to change, because I would love this idea of the gaming industry being fun and welcoming and accepting for everyone. But at the same time, there also has to be changes made to ensure that's also genuine. And again, not everyone is going to agree with this, not everybody is going to get behind these changes, but to address toxicity in a way that makes gaming more welcoming for everyone, and I truly mean welcoming for everyone across the board, that's the goal. I don't want anybody to be ostracized, I don't want anybody to feel like they don't have a spot in this community anymore. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And again, that's a difficult goal to achieve. That's something that is not going to be the easiest of all, but it's something that I think is possible if the big industry heads like Phil Spencer and like those across the industry begin to come together and really talk about this. But I digress. That is a topic I wanted to talk about today. Of course, a lot of thoughts on this, a lot of talk going on in the chat, which I appreciate very much. Glad you guys are here. But let's move on to a feel-good story of the day, a nice palate cleanser, if you will. A terminal cancer patient is getting to play Borderlands 3 early. The Borderlands community has helped do a really special thing for a terminally ill gamer. The Borderlands community helped a really great dream come true this past month. A Reddit user by the name of Taru Strev, sure, went to the official Borderlands Reddit a month ago in terms of playing Borderlands 3 early. His real name is Trevor Eastman. Trevor was diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal, there we go, I'm not a doctor, there, it's this region, esophageal, stomach, and liver cancer, and he did not know whether or not he would live to see the launch of the game. He was even asking the community as a whole to stand together and make this dream a reality. He just wanted to ask to see if anyone knew a way he could get the game early. Reading through this thread, you can see the sheer amount of support from random strangers going to Twitter, informing Randy Pitchford and Gearbox of the situation, trying to get Trevor the game. And of course, there are the official proofs and whatnot if you did want to dive in and give it a look. But yesterday, Trevor went back to Reddit to inform everyone that 2K has contacted him and are making it so he will get a copy of the game early. Trevor additionally gave his thanks to the community for helping him achieve his goal. Being a gamer, seeing so much negativity consistently can be a real drag and at times can kill motivation, but moments like these just recharge the battery and reminds me that there is so much more good than what is shown on the day-to-day basis. It is so great to hear that this fan is getting to experience the game before it is too late, and of course, we all hope Trevor does enjoy the game, but I will say for those that I think something just disconnected. For those that are saying, hey, this could be fake, he has posted proof, and on top of that, they are flying somebody out to Trevor, which more than likely means he isn't going to be getting a copy of the game. What has happened in the past, because this is something that has been going on for a couple of years now, is that somebody will fly out to the individual and let them play the game for, you know, between a couple and 12 hours, whatever it might be. You get the opportunity to dive into the game and enjoy it while somebody is there ensuring that you're not selling it on eBay for thousands of dollars, which makes sense. But nonetheless, awesome to see the gaming community come together in this specific way. And as I said, this isn't the first time that this kind of thing has happened. We have seen this over the course of the past few months, the past few years, as this kind of call has been something that gaming communities rally around and companies identify with, because a lot of people, including myself, have a connection with these games, have a connection with these franchises, and if God forbid I were to die, I would love to be able to play the next upcoming games that are coming out that connect with me, that I love, that I've grown up playing. That's something that really does hit me where it counts, and so to be able to have this kind of story to end off the day, I thought was a pretty awesome piece of news that we should always cover, because as much as Tfue is getting coverage on Twitter for all of his, you know, claims towards FaZe Clan, and as much as the drama is beginning to circulate, these are the stories that matter. These good, feel-good stories, they matter too, and I think that's what I want to put back out into the world. But, of course, we have Eric the Slayer, which, of course, was with Bethesda. I remember that story from a couple of years back. Good stuff nonetheless. However, that rounds out today's top gaming news. Of course, if you are brand new to Caffeinate, welcome on in. I do hope you did enjoy today's show. But of course, the show itself is hosted 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, right here live on twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams. Then it's taken down and put up on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia and podcast services around the world. If you did want to check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc., guest or followed on Twitch, you should too. Good job. Good job. But I will talk to you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. But until then, have a phenomenal rest of your day/night, and peace.